there we go. Like an old radio microphone. I take one side, you take the other.
The old radio, old-timer radio.
I'm in your one ear. I don't think that's dynamic sound.
No, you gotta get the binaural.
Hello, and welcome to the Shit Show podcast. Or no, the post-credit Shit Show podcast.
One of these days we'll get the title right.
This is only like, what, the 6th or 7th episode for me.
This is the third time for me.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll get it right one of these days.
I'm George.
I'm Dylan.
And we talk about movies and potentially shit on them.
Yeah.
Might not be the case this time.
No, I don't think either of these films we're gonna shit on.
A first for us. Well, actually, we'll see.
Yeah,
let's not lead a little too much into what's happening here. So, yeah, we have two movies. They're both horror movies just because literally after we recorded the last one, we went on to Shudder and we're just like, let's just watch these two.
Yeah, because there's one of the things was one of the movies we watched was released just recently on Blu-ray through Vinegar Syndrome. They did I think it was homemade horror.
Oh yeah,
and they took three made-for-television horror films that have basically just been like non-existent, like people don't know about them, kind of like what Arrow did with the American Horror Project.
Okay.
They took three innocuous, no one's ever heard of these movies, and they remastered them, put them out, and
V was one of them.
Beyond Dream's Door was one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Winter Beast and Final Exam were the other two.
Ooh.
And I haven't seen those, but they're all up on Shudder, so I've been meaning to check them out.
Maybe it's a reason for us to watch it.
I've heard Winter Beast is terrible, but lots of fun, so it's on my watch list. So. But yeah.
We'll start off with V then, because I think it'll be probably a little bit quicker of a discussion.
Yeah, I couldn't find too much information about it, aside from like the most obvious stuff.
So the first movie we'll talk about is V. Really the only information either of us can find, I think it's the same thing that Shudder provides in its description.
Yeah.
Which is that the first horror movie produced in Soviet Union, Russia.
Yeah, literally the only thing I have written here is first Soviet-era horror film, 1967. Although I read a little bit more, I didn't put it in the notes, but apparently there was some of it near the end, like the last 20 minutes is kind of spooky. There's a lot of like, not graphic today, but graphic back then. I guess in the case of like Soviet era. So they got away with showing a lot more than they expected to because it was a folktale. So they're adapting a folktale.
Oh, is it?
So
okay.
If they were trying to like, for instance, they're like, oh, we wanted to make our first horror movie, and they were trying to do like something like Hostel.
That'd be a big old no-go.
Exactly, but because they're adapting a folktale, they were able to get away with a lot more spookiness to it. Which I
did not know it was a folktale.
Apparently it is.
So, an interesting thing, despite this being a Russian film of yesteryear, it is dubbed in English. I don't know how recent the dub was made. Definitely wasn't an original thing, because a lot of the the opening text, if I recall correctly, wasn't translated. Yeah.
I think they had... I watched it on Shudder, and I think it was... I don't recall there being like an English dub at the bottom, like the subtitles to translate it. I think it was just like a Russian text, and then it went into the movie.
Yeah.
I want to get the movie on Blu-ray because I want to see it in its original production language. Because
out of sheer curiosity.
Yeah. Plus, it's a good movie, but the English dub is a little cartoonish at sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like,
and definitely makes it more confusing. I would say. Yeah,
because there's some like spooky scenes where he's on the witch's back and she's like jumping up and like super high in the air. You remember that?
Yeah.
And hearing him, he's like, "Whoa, whoa!" And it's cartoonish. And I think that in the original language, it probably wouldn't have been.
Well,
at least I assume it's not. It would
based on a folktale, it's probably a little silly.
Yeah, it will have those elements there.
So, okay, I have to like just go over my notes because like a little bit of it is just like a bit of a fever dream of what the fuck happened in the movie.
Yeah, I saw it. I think 2019. Mm-hmm. Because Severin released it on Blu-ray in that same year, so I think that's when it went on Shudder.
I saw it 2 weeks ago, and it's still a bit hazy for me.
Yeah, it's a wishy-washy. It's weird, but it's fun.
So it opens up with a church, and I'm assuming they're supposed to be young adult males, given that they have prominent facial hair, but they're leaving a church for some reason, some kind of break, I guess.
I think, if I remember correctly, I think they were taking their vows.
Okay.
And they were...
Because I know it's like, you have to be back by this point, or whatever. I couldn't quite catch exactly.
They're, Poland, I think in, like, some sects of, like, Christianity and, like, Catholicism, that they do go out into the world for 1 week. It's your last week. That's your final time to decide whether or not you want to take your vows and, like, become a nun.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was what that was. Like, you get one last chance to see the world and whatnot, and then you can come back, and then you take your vows, and then you're done. You just don't leave.
Okay.
I might be reading it wrong, but I know...
I mean, that sounds about right from the context that it tries to communicate. Mm-hmm. Let's see. They're warned about devil stealing kids.
Yep.
Which doesn't play at all into the movie.
No, there's...
I was 100% expecting, like, okay, I can see where this is going. Like, these three people that we're focusing on, they're gonna get lost, and, like, they're gonna get stolen, or some shit like that. No.
Once two of those characters leave, they're never seen again. It's just the main guy. Cromrin?
He's referred to as Brother Philosopher. I remember that much, very obviously, for obvious reasons.
Brother Philosopher.
Run into a market and steal food? ? I think that was the scene that happened.
Kuma?
Okay.
Kuma is the main guy.
3 students that we follow get lost. So there's one that's a little more heavier set. There's and the other 2 are kind of like, not thin but normal.
Like average build.
One of them doesn't have facial hair. The other one does. The one that does is Kuma, or Brother Philosopher, as he gets constantly referred to later in the film.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like, there's some, like, Japanese films that they don't call a character by their name, by their distinct title or something, and it's kind of weird. You're like, do we ever get to know the character's name? And it's like, oh, doctor, and you're like, doctor what?
Yeah.
Doctor what?
So they end up at this kind of house that's, like, walled off.
Yeah.
It's owned by some old lady, and, like, they basically harassed her to let them in for somewhere to stay for the night. And she's like, I don't have anywhere to stay. You can stay in the barn or whatever. Like, she separates them, like, takes one to the house, takes one somewhere else, and the other one goes into, like, the stable. Mm-hmm. And
Koma gets the stable, if I remember correctly.
And once the other 2 characters leave, you never see them until, like, the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, did they, like, die or, like, get turned into animals? Like, it implies some, like, weird shit happened to them.
Yeah.
Off screen. Because, like, Koma's in the stable.
Yep.
And then, like, the old lady comes and, like, tries to, like, I don't know what, like, advance on him in some weird way.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to initiate.
Yeah.
Coupling.
And, like,
it's very clearly played by a man.
Yeah. And then, like, it's, like, a huge, like, nope, I'm getting out of here. And then, like, the witch, like, I say witch because that's basically what she turns into.
Yeah.
The old lady, like, hops onto his, like, shoulders and, like, rides him into the sky.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
She, like, hooks her legs underneath his armpits and then just, like, drags him into the air. But it's not just like, oh, we're 10 feet off the ground. They're, like, 30 or 40 feet. Like, they're floating around. Like, she's using him as a broom, basically.
And, like, it is so freaking bizarre, and it's weird, and then, like, it's completely forgotten about.
Yeah,
and this is like not even 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, it's a very short movie. It's only like an hour and 17, or it's under an hour and a half. But that encounter is almost treated like, oh, I've tripped. You stumble and okay, and then it's never really brought up again. It happens and then he runs away. He gets the hell out of there, and then it's never mentioned again.
Yeah, so like the old lady turns into a young girl and like dies or something.
Yeah.
And he runs away back to the church, and it's like there's no mention of the other 2. There's no mention of what just happened to him. It's just like, hey, you're gonna go to this place and perform this this ritual for this person who died.
Yep.
You have no say in the matter. And then that's just it.
I think because one of the guys, I think it's the Russian Orthodox. I don't know what they're called. The fathers, monsignors.
The equivalent of like a monk for a monastery.
Yeah, like an ossuary or something like that. But anyway, he says that the girl who was dying called you by name. And you have to perform the rites and whatnot. And he's just like, I've never met this girl in my life, so I have no idea who this person is. I don't know how she would even know my name or who I am. And he gets stuck there because in like Judaism, when somebody dies, I don't know the name. I watched a movie called The Vigil recently, and same thing. Like somebody sits with the body overnight so the soul doesn't get taken away, or it's to like guard the body and whatnot from like demons and shit. But basically, I think that's what they're doing, but it's for 3 nights. So he stays there and reads. He reads the book and prays to the woman, the corpse, every 3 nights. But it doesn't.
It's not that simple, is it?
No, it does not go the way he thinks it's going to go.
He gets put into like a cart with like the family or like people who work with the family of the girl who died.
Yeah.
And they stop off at like this inn where like they get drunk and like. Such a weird sequence happens, like, almost all the time in this movie. It's not... would never consider it horror except for, like, the last bit of the movie.
Yeah.
So, like, they're at this inn, and they're drinking, and, like, for some reason, like, Coma sees, like, the same guy come out of, like, 3 different rooms in one shot. And it's just such a weird sequence where it's like, come into this room, brother philosopher. No, brother philosopher, you should come into this room. It's like, what the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that was supposed to be like temptation in a sense, because he was
temptation for a bed. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like not non sequitur moments, but there's a lot of moments that don't make. I guess it's like a culturally like a transition.
I would imagine so. Maybe it makes more sense in the original folktale version of it, but like. It feels like this movie almost comes off as like vignettes where this one character is like in each one, but like they really have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, it's just almost like here's 3 things that happened to him.
Yeah.
1, he was rode into the sky, and here he is being tempted at an inn, and the 3rd one is him doing the rites for the body. So it's kind of weird.
It is a little weird.
I really liked it though. I thought it was like
overall the movie is shot very well.
Oh yeah,
especially for the time.
Yeah,
like I love like the little tricks they do. Like going back to like the witch being like carrying him off. You can tell like what they've done is they have them dangling doing their thing, and then they have like some sort of rotating scenery behind them.
Yeah,
and it's very obvious, but it looks kind of cool though.
Yeah,
I love like that old like film aesthetic.
Because they use like forced perspective when the ghouls.
I have that note in here too.
Because they've got like the paneling. It looks like it's all one sheet.
Yeah.
But they've got them crawling out. I absolutely love
that. It was my favorite effect.
Set design. Like once they all start climbing, they're like old pennies. Like they've got like the oxidized copper, like the bluish tint to them. And they'll start crawling out of the walls and the grounds and the arms and whatnot. That's the last act is worth it for the price of admission.
Yes,
it's a fantastic 3rd act.
Yeah, if anything, it's like you just skip to the last 20 minutes of the movie.
It's basically
there's no need for the rest of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, once he gets to the part where he's at the church doing the rites, it's a slow burn up to that point. But like the 3rd act, like the final 20 minutes is when all hell breaks loose, and that's the best part of the movie. It's fantastic.
100%. He gets to this settlement that this family owns, and they lock him in for the first night, and he performs it, and like she gets out of her coffin as he's like reading, so he like draws a line of chalk around it and like to protect himself, and it just kind of like builds up from like each night where it gets like more shit happens, like the second night, she's flying around her coffin like it's a fucking, like...
The surfboard?
Yeah, the surfboard!
Think
I was thinking surfboard, like,
Escape from L.A.? Is that the second one?
That's the second where they're surfing?
Yeah, and it's kind of like that. Like, she's on, like, the coffin treats it as a surfboard. She's like, dun, 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 all the way through across the room.
It kind of, what I was trying to think of is, like, Diddy Kong Racing, like, the little airplane carts. That's what it was reminding me of for some reason. You know what I'm talking about?
Hover cart?
Yes! Just going around in circles, it's like, just pick up the fucking red balloon. Like,
yeah, just get the red balloon already.
But, flying coffin. Looks like a boss from a character from Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh, did you actually?
That's what I wrote down. Burden in his book, when he opened it the first time, and like a crow or something flies out of it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. That's such a subtle... Well, not subtle. It's a fucking bird leaping from the book. But it's one of those ones where, like, it's quickly drowned out by all the other, like, random shit. You're like, bird in the book! And then you're like, things out on the wall, and the bird in the book, you don't even remember about that.
Yeah, and, he goes around... The first night he's going around, he's lighting all the candles, like... Very, like, meticulously, they show him doing, like, every candle. It's like, they're setting some shit up. This is great. Mm-hmm. This is where the movie shines its most, is when he gets locked in the church for the first night.
Yep. And then it builds. There's that consistent adding. But it's not just, like, doing the same thing. Like, it's repetition in the sense that she's coming to life every night before... And she's climbing out, because apparently she's supposedly a witch.
Yeah. Not the same one from the beginning of the film?
No, separate one.
Okay. That's what I was like, is it the same person? I just do not recognize them, because, like, I've ejected that opening from my brain.
No, separate people. But,
okay.
Like I said, like, the repetition is that each night something weird happens, but it's not the same thing. It tweaks it and makes it a little... It's like a wave, like a boss rush, like first wave, second wave, third wave, and then it just gets, like...
And he dies.
Yeah.
He dies. Yeah. And then, he dies at the end after suffering, the third night. And then it cuts back to the church where the other two characters are there, and they're just like, well, poor brother Philosopher.
Yeah. You're like, why did he die? How did you guys know? Where the hell were you people?
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, I'm trying to think of a character in a movie, like you watch, I can't even remember. It's just like, the opening scene is some dude like having a conversation with the character, and he goes, well, be safe. And then, like, at the end of the movie, he just walked back into frame, and you're like, yeah, that's right, I'm back. You're like, who the fuck were you? Like, where were you this entire time? What have you been doing?
Like, part of me, I was just trying to, like, decipher it, and, like, part of me thinks, like, did, like, he die back at, like, the old lady's house, and, like, the rest of it's just some sort of, like, existential fever dream or some shit?
I had that same interpretation, kind of like Jacob's Ladder.
A little bit, yeah.
He died in Vietnam, and this is just, like, the last fleeting moments of his brain and synapses firing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It doesn't... It's very nonsensical. It's not scary, but it's a very interesting horror film.
Yeah, very well made.
Yeah.
I definitely dig it.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch. I'd definitely say I would recommend it. Because it's short.
It's worth watching the last 20 minutes. I could not recommend someone sitting through the entire, 60 minutes of this film or whatever.
It did take its time building up.
Because, I think a lot of people would have just, said, signed out, as soon as, the nonsensical witch shit happened.
Yeah. But still, I would recommend it. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I actually came prepared this time.
Oh.
Our producer is handing us the copy for the ad read. It is ad read time. This is the right side of the copy. This episode is sponsored by Babbel. New year, new you. What's your New Year's resolution there, Dylan? Learning a new language? That's great. Do I have the thing for you then?
I didn't have a chance to think of it.
Learning a new language is easy with Babbel. Babbel is an award-winning app that uses activities and tools to help you learn new languages efficiently and effectively. And recently, Babbel has added some new languages to its library, like Animalish, Simlish, Animalese, Simlish, Arlaian, yeah, Sumerian, and common. Use our promo code SHIT at checkout for 10% off and learn a new language today.
Did you make those languages up?
No, man.
Are they real?
Animal Crossing, Sim, Call of Cthulhu, The Book of the Dead, D&D.
Now we know.
Thank you, Babbel, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And we're back. I think this is probably the highlight of this episode, for sure.
Yeah.
And it kind of unexpected.
I was really not expecting to like this.
Only thing I knew because of the description that Shudder has for it is it's, Lovecraftian.
Yes.
And that immediately is like, I gotta watch that now.
Yeah.
Because I just love, Lovecraft, Eldritch horror.
Yeah. It's like saying, hey, it's a samurai movie from the 70s. Like, yeah, absolutely, put it on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's like,
why are you not
like
putting
your
it
samurai.
on? Yeah. I fucking love samurai movies. I've seen a ton of them. Put it on. You don't need to convince me further.
So, we're talking about Beyond Dream's Door.
Yeah.
This is a movie that was released in 1989.
Yep.
It's only 86 minutes long, which is a very important thing to note.
I noted that too.
Not for the reasons I think you noted it, though.
Maybe, but we'll see.
It's shot on 16 millimeter.
Yep.
Was originally a short film from 1983.
Yep.
Oh, good. Look at that.
Because he graduated in 1985,
mm-hmm.
and he went on to adapt it from a 21-minute short film.
There's a whole fucking shit.
Oh, yeah. I'm proud.
It was great, because, like, I went and Googled it, and, like, on his site, the director's site...
That's exactly where I
He has, like, this whole page on it about production notes, and I'm like, this is the best thing ever.
I'm like, but it's not even just Dream's Door. It's every one of his movies. He's got an entire production history about it, which is fascinating. I love that shit.
But yeah, like, going on with just this movie, there's such an interesting story behind everything.
I thought it was just one of those, we made it. I'm like, no, even the making of the movie and the behind the scenes stuff was like just fantastic. I was like, oh shit, this is actually like super interesting.
So we'll get into a lot of that after we've talked about the film itself.
Yes.
Because context is needed.
Yep.
Just note that there's a reason why 86 minutes is very important.
Yep.
So, the movie opens up with a dream.
Yep.
In fact, the entire movie might as well be like, weird dream sequences after another.
Yeah, because there's a point, kind of like Inception. I can't believe Christopher Nolan stole from this. But like Inception, there's moments where you can't tell. I'm like, is he dreaming this part? Is this real?
I'm trying to think. There's a better movie to kind of direct it where it's like it blurs that line. And I was about to say Nightmare on Elm Street, but that's just not entirely true.
No.
Despite the fact that's one of the inspirations for the film. There's a phone in the foreground. It's ringing. Ben opens his door in the background, and I love how that shot looks, where it's just like it's this dark space. You see the phone just up in front of the camera, and like the door opens, and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. Holy shit, he shot this really well.
That's one of the moments. 16 millimeter doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when they think like, oh, why isn't it like, higher? The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was 16 millimeter. It still looks really nice. It's got a nice aesthetic and whatnot. But people think, oh, it's shot 16 millimeters, so it must not be that well produced. And that's completely irrelevant. It was budgetary reasons. Mm-hmm. But they took every moment that they could add in a unique cut or interesting camera work or colorful lighting. They went above and beyond for a simple made-for-TV movie. Well, I mean, I say made-for-TV, but
it looks like it's made for TV, just because it's 16 millimeter.
Yeah, and they didn't really do much for color correcting back then.
Yeah.
It was basically just...
Not that you really need to do much color correction, because it looks fine.
Yeah, it's a very stylish movie.
Yes.
I was actually very impressed with the camera work.
And continuing on with this, he has Inception-style dream where it's like he wakes up into another dream kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where he's playing hide-and-seek with what I originally thought was his brother, but it turns out it wasn't. Until like a little later in the film, it's like...
That's exactly what I thought, and then you never see him again. So
it's like, no, it's just some kid that's like haunting his dreams and like starts haunting other people.
Yeah, from what I read on the website, it was... Fuck, it's gone.
Anyway, so the kid counts to like 100 very rapidly. in between shots. Second dream gets attacked by monster in hiding spot. So like he goes to hide from the kid, and he goes into the basement and he pushes a bookshelf out of the way or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole doorway he hides behind. He puts the shelf. No, he doesn't push it. He actually like crawls up and under it, right?
No,
up and over it.
I think he tries to crawl up and over it when the monster attacks him.
Oh, okay.
Because I think he's like, you see him struggling. And you're like, you wouldn't need to struggle from behind it. You would just need to push the upmost part with a little bit of force, and the whole thing will topple over. There was nothing on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing.
Love the sound design. So crisp. Oh, the typewriter. Because it immediately cuts to like a typewriter. And you hear, that... I just... I don't care much for ASMR, but like, I can kind of get that feeling just by those bits like of sound.
I don't really enjoy ASMR, but like stuff like, tires driving on gravel or just like love that stuff.
Yeah, and it just sounds so crisp in this film. Like a lot of the sound design overall like has that very like, the best way to describe it is just, very tightly sounded. Like it's not muffled or anything like that.
Yeah, they did a pretty decent job with the sound mixing, because there's actually I'm assuming you saw that there was a note near the end where they hired the dude to do the sound design, and they were driving to his place at like 4:30 in the morning, and I specifically wrote, a bat hit the windshield of their car, because they were like, oh, we're falling asleep, and a little bat flew into the windshield, and it woke them up. When they got there, they found that they had a couple hours until they had to leave the space they had rented and whatnot. That was all this time they had. And when they got there, they found out that the sound designer only had a single minute of footage sound, like,
really
done. So at 4:30 in the morning, the last few hours, they're like, fuck, we got to get this done. So it was the director, another guy, I think it was one of the actors, and the sound guy were just hauling ass at like 4:30 in the morning till I don't know when, because he only finished a minute out of the 86 minutes.
Oh, the music. The music I've noted sound like a point and click game from like the DOS era.
Yeah, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I can definitely see this being a point and click game or something like that. This is great.
Yeah,
I love it.
I didn't make the same distinction with the music, but I was like, it's very fitting for the film itself. So I liked the music.
Oh, okay. Student gonna blow his brains out over F just for... Oh, okay. So, I have weird notes that I write down to try to remember what the fuck it was meant for.
Oh, yeah, just like the random strings of a madman.
So, like, after, like, the weird dream stuff and, like, everything, it cuts to, like, an office in a school with a bunch of TAs, teacher assistants. And the one teacher comes in, pretending to be, like, a student, and, like, goes on about this thing... And then, like, he pulls out a gun, like, pretending he's stressed. Yeah. Just to see how, like, the TA would react. And
the guy, of course, like, he pulled out a gun and he's like, oh, I'm going to kill myself in your office. And the guy's like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't wrestle the gun out of his hand or whatever. And he's just like, no, this is just a test to put everyone through. That's how you give people PTSD. Yeah. That's right. I'm going to kill myself. You're like,
It was very weird.
I'd rather you kill yourself over a bad grade than kill me. I got papers to... Actually, you know what? Put the gun to my head. I don't want to grade these papers.
And it's also the teacher for, like, the psychoanalysis class or, like, something like that.
The one that's like, oh, I'm the calm person, but you're like, I'm trying to teach you how to, like, homeopath and, like, how to bring yourself to inner calm, but I'm also the person that wakes you up with firecrackers at 2 in the morning.
Exactly.
You fucking dickhead.
Okay, so, like, Ben, the main character, he's in
I was just saying, yep.
Okay. He's in the class with the psych teacher, and like he kind of falls asleep in class, and like he's dreaming of his dead family, and he like subconsciously in the real world writes, "Beyond dreams' door lies horrors."
Yep.
And he goes then to a sleep lab, and I wrote down has a red pill. A red sleeping pill. I think it was like, did the Wachowskis watch this movie? That's a little bit weird.
Yeah, because there was the teacher that had the gun pulled on him. So there's two dudes. There's a dude grading the tests and the guy that pulled the gun. The guy who was grading the test he's kind of like a love interest to the girl.
Yeah.
That's doing the sleep test. So this is how they're in, like, Ben, the main character.
Yeah, the male TA.
Yes, I can't remember his name. there's a fantastic I actually put a little star to it because I fucking love that story.
Okay, we'll definitely get to it. So yeah, the female TA runs a bunch of tests with different people in a sleep lab for a paper for graduating. I'm assuming it's a high school or college setting.
I think it's like a thesis, like a college setting. Yeah,
actually, probably college. That's where most TAs end up being that are still students in that case. And yeah, Ben happens to be one of the subjects, and he just it happens to be the most interesting subject to have.
This guy's dreaming of boobies, and this one's dreaming of monsters and shit's chasing him, and he can't tell. I'm like, I'm going to focus
dreaming
on
of dead parents? He's an orphan, though. I made a note that there's really no filler in this movie either.
Yeah, I didn't make a note for that, but I was going to say, like, I think when I reviewed it on Letterboxd, I made a mention that for any other film, you would have felt some kind of form of boredom.
Like, there would be a little bit of a lull between things.
But
there isn't in this.
There's some downtime, but there's shit that's interesting. So, like, one of the girls is, like, following, like, a red balloon and whatnot, but the camera angles and the way it's moving, and you think, like, oh, it's kind of just, it's a lull in the movie, but there's still interesting stuff happening at every point in time. There's no downtime for the film, which is fantastic. It feels like every second is used properly.
Efficiently, and, where, like even films, obviously films nowadays have quite a bit of filler, but even films back then, like, there'd still be a little bit. But this is just like, nope, we're going to use our time.
Yeah, what I wrote was, it's an eclectic mixed bag of ideas, some of which work while others don't, but there's always something interesting taking place. Despite its amateur production, it's ambitious as hell. Lots of interesting camera work, lighting, and DIY special effects. They made the most of what they had available to them. There's always something interesting happening. There's slower moments, but there's slower, interesting moments.
Yeah, everything serves the plot.
Yeah, which is...
Or the progression of the film.
Very... Like, they didn't even do that in the new Dune movie. There's a lot of shit they're like... yeah.
I kind of also made a random note here saying that disjointed editing works well for the theming, obviously, because... Yeah, like, there's no point where, like, anytime you see, like, dream sequences, it doesn't cut to be like, that was a dream. It's like, no, it's like, that was a dream?
Yeah, you can't
Is this part of the dream?
Unlike, what movie was I watching? It's like, in The Matrix, any scenes that takes place with him in the actual Matrix is tinted green. You can tell, like, he's in the Matrix. They don't do any of that. There's no clear distinction. Oh, it's when it's in, like, there's a vignette, or... when it's like black and white or the color grading, whatever. There's unique color lighting in every aspect, dreaming or not. There's no distinction, which is one of the things that blurs the line between is he asleep, is he awake.
It's like, you look at something like, we're going back to saying it, but like Inception, where it's like, everyone's like, oh, it's so confusing. What's the dream? What is it? Or what isn't? And it's like, you can easily very tell what layer of like subconscious they're in that movie. It's like, here it's like, did the movie even start in reality?
Yeah.
Has it ever been in reality? Like, at one point or another?
Because he's haunted by...
This is what Christopher Nolan wish he could make.
Yeah. Eat shit, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, fuck you. Dr. C's young kid... Okay, so the teacher, the psych teacher, is waiting for Ben because he was looking at his paper he had written, which pertained to, like, his dreams that he's been having. And as he calls Ben to come, like, meet him at his place or something like that, or Ben called him or something, and, like, he sees the kid that Ben saw in his dreams, and it's just like,
which I think there's, like, a tenuous connection in the sense that, because on the production page on the website it said the dreams didn't forget about Ben, but Ben forgot about the dreams, which is why they're coming to get him. Which explains why other people who are sleeping but aren't having those same dreams, because I don't dream the same dream that you dream, and vice versa. We might have, like,
you sure?
Yeah, like, we might have some of those, like, oh, I dreamed like I was like falling off something. Like, yeah, everybody has that kind of dream, different things.
Yeah,
but specifically this child. So I think it was because it was captured in the pages. He wrote down, and other people were like, oh, once you read this, now you're plagued by those images, which is why one of the reasons the monsters are like, we're looking for the last page. Someone else will find it and will be remembered again.
Yeah. I made a note later in the film where it's like, a better bye-bye man.
I was gonna say, for a second there, I almost said, like, you plant the idea in somebody's head and they'll think about that. I wanted to say Bye Bye Man, but I didn't because it's a terrible dog.
It's a terrible movie. It's so bad. But I was thinking like this is the same concept that Bye Bye Man has in like some way or shape or form.
That's like me writing like a giant tree monster on a piece of paper and you're like, wow, okay, and then you having a dream and then you're suddenly being chased by that. You're like, it like Bye Bye Man came after Beyond Dream's Door, but Beyond
no shit, by about 25 some odd 30 years at least.
Yeah, but Bye Bye Man is like the best analogy we could have for that. Like
as like a recent analogy.
Yeah, nothing else like I can't think of.
So the kid asks the teacher doctor if he wants to play hide and seek, and it's like, okay, the shit's getting real. So he meets Ben at the school in the library, and he brings out a book for him to look at that has to deal with a similar issue that is cropped up.
There's like a shadowy dude in the back.
Yes. I put a waking dreams, probably because a lot more at this point, the line between reality and dream starts blurring a heck of a lot more.
Yeah.
Like a lot, basically the dreams kind of intercept into the reality.
They're definitely bleeding in.
Yeah.
Because at some points you could see a clear distinction where Ben would be haunted by something and then he'd be like, "Ugh," and he'd wake up. And you're like,
there'd be like a surreal nature to it, but now it's just like it's implanted. Like,
like they're just basically like now they've bled into real life and they're taking over because there's scenes early in the film you do see him wake up and he goes, oh, okay, it was a dream. Later on in the movie,
you never see that.
You never see him wake up, so you assume like, is he still dreaming through this entire thing, or is he awake and the dreams are bleeding in? So there's a lot of like ambiguity.
The teacher doctor is murdered by Dream Monster.
Yeah.
Just straight up gets killed, and like not only that, like is erased it completely from existence.
Yeah, it's almost like
he never existed.
Yeah, they just dissipated like a thought in the air.
Yeah, because like basically what ends up happening. Well, yeah, you were on. We'll talk about the special effects in a moment. But basically, what ends up happening is like he tries to go to the doctor's house. The house is just gone from the lot.
Yep.
The female TA tries to call, and like the number doesn't exist.
That's right. Yeah, I'm looking for a number for Professor Knox is his name, and they're like, oh, there's nobody living there. That address doesn't exist.
That number, that number doesn't exist.
That's impossible. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And you're like, so.
It's like, oh man.
Are they sleep deprived? Is it something that these characters didn't exist, or is the dream erasing them from? Because you forgot about us, we didn't forget about you. Now people are going to forget about you.
Yeah, this kind of brings more of a good comparison to Bye Bye Man, and its weird nature. Because obviously in that movie, spoilers if you haven't seen the shit movie, in Bye Bye Man, the whole thing was like, you are haunted by him if you like see the name Bye Bye Man written out or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, if you think it or you write it or you say it, he'll come in.
And then that's how it spreads. But like at the same time, he tries to kill off people spreading it, and it's kind of in this one it makes a little bit more of a weirder sense where it's like it's trying to
contain itself
by getting rid of anything that will spread its reach, but it wants to control its reach at the same time.
Yeah, but unlike the Bye Bye Man, it's like, oh, if you think of my name and whatnot, I'll come and kill you, so don't think of my name. But if you do, if I say it out loud, I'm going to kill all the other people that now know and whatnot. So you're like, maybe people wouldn't say it if you just ignored them. Like, killing people, like, I want people to say it so I can come out and kill them, but I also, if I kill them, they can't spread it. And it spreads.
It's so weird.
Are you overfishing a small pond? It sounds antithetical to this whole thing. I don't get it. It wasn't well written.
No.
Spoiler alert. It was not well written.
Let's see what else I have. Oh yeah, go ahead and talk about the special effects that happen in it.
So a lot of the regular lighting looks really, really well, but I think a lot of the budget went towards the big monster with the claws.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting too much from this movie. I thought they would just have like hands, because you would see a little bit of the hands when he's behind the bookcase at the beginning of the film, and they would lean over, and you're like, oh geez, like there's a monster. I didn't expect them to make not a full body. I think they just made like a torso and like upwards. But like the professor has been mauled, his skin is peeling off. They did fantastic work with that. But I also made a note here. There was 2 distributors that were vying for distribution rights, and one of them, apparently the director, Jay Wolfell, was called over the phone the one night, and the director said that his 10-year-old had an idea for the film.
I was going to imagine that.
It was that they should shoot it dimly lit, and that the monster should be wet and slimy.
Oh, I have other notes that the 10-year-old mentioned, so...
Yeah, he's just like, I don't know why a 10-year-old would be watching this movie, but he's like, okay, so they decided to make the monster slimy, almost looks like the dog from The Thing.
Yeah.
After he's just all gross and just goopy and whatnot.
In the library, you also... I'm trying to remember correctly, but, like, I think it's supposed to be, like, the professor or some other dead man. I'm being a little hazy on the details now.
It's one of the other than, like, the plot points, it's hard to tell which scene came first.
Yes.
Especially when the hauntings begin.
The haunting at Dream Door.
Dream Door.
Shortly after this, the female TA who's back at the sleep lab is being followed by a red balloon, which is something you had mentioned briefly.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a really good, like, creepy-ish moment, because you're like, what the fuck is, like, this is weird. And now it's affecting her because, you know, she's been studying Ben.
Yeah. So of course she's now tied to it, but like the scene, the balloon's like floating around, she's following it, and she's like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then it just pops into like
blood,
and I'm like, I was actually really impressed by that special effects. I couldn't tell it because the balloon was floating through the air, so it wasn't filled with anything. Any like small amount would just keep it from like floating.
Yeah.
But if it was two cuts of like water and like the shape of the balloon and whatnot, they did it fantastically well. It was spectacular because they just went and just into blood and like, oh shit, like. A lot of the special effects in this movie are pretty damn good.
Very smartly done.
Yes.
Yeah. Something to aspire to.
Yeah, I don't think the movie as a whole was great. It has a lot of great moments, and you could tell, like, for a first time, these guys were doing a lot of really unique, interesting stuff. There's a lot of nice little things in the movie. Definitely worth a watch.
I just wrote down question mark for trapdoor.
Oh, I got a note for that.
I'm assuming this is referring to the trapdoor. Oh yeah, so he goes the next day to the school to have the male TA look at his paper that he wrote that he had shown the doctor, and he had mentioned something about a trapdoor, and the TA's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And he leads him to the trapdoor, and it's like, is this what it is? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like you're introduced to the trapdoor, which is going to play some role in the end, obviously, because it's like where the monster came from or whatever. It's weird where the locationing of it, because it seems to be like upstairs on like another floor, but it's also like a maintenance shop-ish looking area.
I have the history of that.
Okay.
So, in regards to the trapdoor, it was shot on the studio, which is that area.
Okay.
So basically, the studio is an inside joke at the OSU, which is the Ohio State University, which is where some of this movie was filmed.
Most of it, yes.
Filmed locally. So the studio was the nickname given to the large industrial room with all the pipes and whatnot that houses the monster.
trapdoor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the trapdoor, there's two concrete slabs that is on the second floor. That's basically to bring things up, heavy equipment from the lower level up to the upper room they were shooting in. But a lot of people used to shoot in the, like, because it's a great looking area. It's a boiler room, like long hallways of pipes and corridors. So a lot of people would shoot there, so it got the nickname the studio. But that's where those trapdoors were. So they were actually filming on the Ohio State University campus.
So after all that, the male TA who has the note gets harassed by paper airplanes and a handless janitor. And I think this is when he meets up with the female TA at her sleep lab area.
Yes.
To try and be like, let's go home, it's getting late kind of thing. You know, I don't feel safe. And like, yeah, paper airplanes get thrown at him like off screen, and like there's a janitor that doesn't have any hands that just is like creepy as all fuck.
Yeah. I think the janitor was seen... I don't think Ben saw the janitor.
No.
I think...
It's just the TAs that see.
Yeah, it was the male and the female TA. I wish I remembered their names. I could Google it, but I don't think I care that much.
No. TA is a pretty good name.
Yeah. Tits and Ass. My name, Professor Tits and Ass.
The TAs are being haunted by the dream monster. So yeah, like they get chased, and like it's mainly focused on with the female who around this time dies from it after like getting out of her car and being like, don't worry, my parents are home. She gets there and her parents aren't home. And she's like, the one time I want them here. And, like, at that point, it's like, yeah, she's dead.
Yeah, you're like, yep, she's dead.
They don't show it, but you know it.
Yep.
100%. Ben chases man to a house where zombies are wandering. So, like...
That that was a really... out of all the unusual scenes, that was...
This is weird, because, like, it's a house that's just out of the middle of nowhere. And, yeah, there's just a bunch of, like, like, I describe them as zombies, but they're just...
He's running through the underground, like, the sewer...
Okay, yes.
Almost. And he sees... I wanted to assume that it was a vision of himself from the future, because he did look very similar. And then on the other side, he comes through the tunnel. He's out in, like, this house. It was like Days of Heaven. It was like the single house out in the woods, but it's filled with a bunch of zombies just bumbling about.
And, like, there's the one person he meets there that, like, says, like, something very, like, prolific, essentially, about, like, you know, his purpose to the dream happenings.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like, you're like, essentially the one who's going to,
I think the zombies were... If
sleep deprived.
Well, that too.
Workers,
but I think I'm
on the set.
Yeah. If I'm interpreting this correctly, I think those are the previous dreams on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Kind of like in Coco.
Yes.
If you forget about us, we dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
Which they also did in Inside Out. Wow, Pixar.
Pixar has some deep rooted shit.
Yeah.
Ben is part of a line of people terrorized by this. Oh yeah, so he finds out there that, like, he's not the first one to be terrorized. This is where a lot of, like, very Lovecraftian things kind of come in, where it's like, you're just one pawn in, like, this grand scheme of, like, something greater than yourself.
Yeah, you think that this is, like, you're the only one experiencing this, but you're just a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
Like, you're just one of, like... others.
It reminds me very Lovecraftian, or even like the game Eternal Darkness, where you have like a bunch of people who experience some weird shit pertaining to something space goddish. I believe the male TA and Ben get together at some point around here. The male TA experiences a few weird shit as well around this point, but Ben comes to him and they're like, oh, we gotta go get the female TA. So they go there, and the female TA who's dead is like, limply pointing the way to, like, her house as they're, like, driving along.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have completely forgot about that.
I remember, and, like, this is actually kind of creepy. Like, in any other movie, it might, like, look a bit cheesy, but, like, this is shot really well, lit well. The headlights kind of make it look, ominous as fuck. And just, like, someone being like, go this way.
In the other movie, she would have been standing in the middle of the road, and
it would have been
like,
very,
oh shit, and then turned off.
Yeah, very stationary shot. Yeah. Day for night, night for day, whatever.
Yeah.
Book attacks. Okay, so there, the book that Ben got, the male TA has the book, and the book, basically becomes like a fucking mimic and, like, grows teeth and everything, and, like, bites him on, like, the ankle, and, like, he's wrestling the book, and it's like, It looks ridiculous a little bit, but it's kind of cool at the same time. I love it.
They're just, at this point, they're jamming a bunch of really unusual but interesting, like, done shit. So
I wrote that Ben dies around this time. Like, it's implied that he died and he's coming back to help the male TA.
Yeah,
but he isn't
because
dead.
The male TA at some point takes over the protagonist role.
Yeah,
and he becomes the protagonist.
Yeah. The female TA who died is now, like, serving, like, the cause of the Dream Demon.
Dreamin'.
The Dreamin'. And, like, he even goes, like, the male TA, like, it's morning, goes to, like, the house of the female TA. Oh, yeah. To see, like, if she's fine. Yeah. And, like, the parents are there. It's like, oh, she's just getting ready. She's just downstairs. You find out, like, it's all, like, some weird ploy to, like, kill him.
Yeah, because you see him, he drives up and he's, like, looking at the house, and then the mom just, like, pokes her head and she goes, oh, would you come in for some breakfast? And he's like, no, I gotta go. She goes, no, you gotta come in for some breakfast. And you're like, okay.
Oh, yeah, because he has to go back to the house to retrieve his car.
Yeah.
That he left there.
Yeah, because he starts, like, walking through and he's like, oh, do I leave it at my girlfriend's place last night?
Yeah.
Nope. And then, you come in for some breakfast.
They go into, like, the sewer system and to go and retrieve something to help defeat the demon, some sort of weapon. I can't remember what the fuck it was.
No, neither can I.
But, like, the only really important thing is, like, an evil Ben tries to lure the male TA away from where the good Ben went.
Yes.
And tries to, like, kill him.
the one you came in with was kind of unsure.
Was wearing a different shirt and wasn't very ominous.
A scowl on his face, like, yes, you should follow me this way. You're like, why are you talking like that? No reason. He says as he...
I got something for the demon. Yeah. It's you.
I'm like, I don't understand how you could have... Like, the moment he, like, came back on the screen and he was, like, glaring, like, scowling, I'm like, yeah, it's the bad demon. Yeah. It's the bad version of him.
They escape out of the sewer. They go back to the school. They break into it. And they get to the trapdoor and they rig up this thing to try and lift the doors and, like, get it going. And the male TA dies while he's going over to, like, you know, get the power going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're left with Ben, who isn't dead, but might be.
Oh, yeah, because he's in the house and he's, like, washing the glass.
Yeah.
Because there's a tooth from one of the demons or whatever.
Yeah, from earlier.
And then Ben just, like, sticks his face up against the window and he goes, hey man, I need your help. And you're like,
that's why you think he's dead, because it's like, what the fuck happened to you?
You're like, where did you come from? Oh, but I got a note here about the TA. So they filmed most of his shots. There was a few scenes that they weren't expecting. They finished them, and when they checked the footage, it turns out that those scenes were all ruined by light leak.
Okay.
Apparently they were just completely unusable. They couldn't use them. So they're like, oh, we need to refilm these shots. So the guy who played the TA, turns out at this point in time, he was in a production of Annie on stage. He was playing Daddy Warbucks. He was fully bald at this point. He shaved his head for the movie. However, they wrote, keep your hair in a bag, and they glued it to his head for the reshoots. I found that very funny that they kept his hair in an emergency bag and they stuck it to his head.
It's funny you mentioned, because I didn't even notice that.
Yep.
It looks very seamless, which is something you can never say.
I think I know the scenes they were talking about, because during the film you can clearly tell there's grain in the footage. And anytime 90% of the movie is shot on 16 millimeter. Mm-hmm. When he gets to the point where he's like stumbling, he's running away through the streets away from like his girlfriend's mom's house.
Yeah.
You can clearly tell it was shot on home video.
Oh, okay.
And I think those are the scenes.
Okay.
Because those are the only ones, and I think they ran out of footage. They didn't have enough for it, because I wrote 13 hours of film, cut to 86 minutes, made 1,600 cuts, finished on videotape. So I think the finishing was those scenes where he's running away. Those were the scenes you can clearly tell it was like night and day in terms of quality difference, and those were the scenes that were shot on home video.
That sounds probably about right. Yeah. And so Ben lures the demon into the thing and doesn't survive after going the trapdoor. As you know, as I wrote, in true Lovecraft style, no one survives. The dream monster is only halted, and that's pretty much is the case. Like, the dream monster will come back. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that is the movie. It's such a good movie. Like, I know, like, anytime we talk about it and we are spoiling shit, it's just like, you still have to see this movie just for, like, visually how everything's done, because it is definitely like one of those things where if you enjoy making films, you enjoy the creative process, you probably will enjoy like just that aspect alone of the film.
Absolutely, 100%. Which is like, when I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like, for me, whenever I think of like, oh, I've got short films that I want to shoot and whatnot, I see other movies, I'm like, oh, I've got an idea of like how I want the scene to be framed. These like DIY, like, we gotta think outside the box, because we have very few things that we can do with these movies. Sorry, these things that we're filming, and you're like, oh, some of them are pretty inspirational.
Yeah,
they take something that's very simple in nature, but they do a very unique way of it, and I think those are pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I like, near the end of the thing, it was shot in 3 weeks and a day. I
have written down it shot for 38 days, so basically what you had.
Yeah, and it says apparently there was two different distributors that wanted to get the rights. I mentioned that earlier. Mm-hmm. One of them wanted nudity, because they said in the thing.
Oh, I forgot to mention there's nudity at the beginning of the movie.
There's 3 separate. The dream girl takes off her shirt and you just see her boobies.
Yeah, and it's just very like out of place from the rest of the movie.
You can clearly tell they're like, there's boobs in this. What for? And it was specifically because they wanted to sell it in Europe, and apparently Europeans love boobies, but they don't really care for gore and violence. And American audiences dig violence, but they don't want their children to watch something with titties in them. Yeah. So there was kind of, that's why we did put boobies in the movie. Yeah. But there's 3 scenes, and they're not sexual. It's just like the ghost has boobs. Yeah. And the other one wanted it cut to 86 minutes. They want 86 minutes.
Exactly, yes.
Exactly 86 minutes.
I wrote that down too.
But here's the funny thing. The movie, I also wrote, it is the only commercially successful film made in Ohio to be distributed nationally in the USA. Because it's still making money to this day.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, their distributor went out. It was Panama Entertainment, which is no longer a company.
Yeah.
And their distributor, it was selling very well. They were making money. They wanted to keep the profits of the film for themselves.
Yes, I have that written down too.
And the company sued the distributors. They won. And the ironic thing is that the payout that the Jay and the team that worked on the movie, they received more money than they would have made if the company had stuck to the contract.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing. They made more money from suing them than they actually would have made from just not being pieces of shit.
So yeah, as we mentioned, it was directed by Jay Wolfman. This was his first feature film. He did do the short film version of this back in '83.
Yes.
Filmed in Columbus, Ohio. Inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow Out of Time, and also Nightmare on Elm Street, which is very obvious. Yep. I kept forgetting to at least listen to Shadow of Time, because it is I think about a 70-page short story, just to see what parts of it inspire. I never got around to it, but I do roughly recall from what little research I have done on Lovecraft stories, is that it's kind of has the same similar vibe about a dream demon or something like that.
Yeah, the unexplainable.
So something you didn't mention, but in partnership with not partnership, but with Ohio and their film things that they had going on there. Cinema department. I have it in there. He was sent to the Cannes Festival, where he tried to ship the film to investors. So this is back when he's trying to get people to invest in it and get distributors and everything.
I read that, but I didn't write it down. And
wasn't super successful with that. There was a lot of people who were yeah, we were interested in doing it, and then just never got around back to them. Cast was basically from an Ohio community theater.
Yep, I wrote that.
Crew from the Ohio college that he was attending, or had attend. Shot with a lot of camera movement. So in his thing, he was saying, because it was shot on the 16 millimeter and also the videotape as well, he didn't want to give it that very made for TV look that 16 millimeter is known for. So he tried to mimic or come up with shots that would invoke a lot more of a cinematic feel, or something you would expect from a proper feature film.
Yeah,
for lack of better words,
their shots are very
static.
Very static.
You think a soap opera kind of thing.
Yeah, where it's just shot, reverse, shot, reverse,
yeah.
The 180 rule.
Yeah, a very basic pan in.
A very rudimentary understanding of film. Point the camera, do the line. Point the camera over here, do the line.
So mentioning shots like the opening where it's the phone in the foreground and the door opening in this darkly lit room, that looks so fucking cinematic in and of itself.
Ironically enough, there's a fun fact. When I started making short films in high school, I didn't realize that they would record the entire scene from one angle, and then they would reshoot with the camera posted on the other scene. So I started making short films where I would record somebody saying a line and then stop it and point it back at me, and it was always disconnected.
I did that too, only because it made it easier for editing, because it's okay, here's that shot for this one, here's that for that one.
Yeah.
And of course now it's we just film one entire scene from one angle and then, go from the other one, so we have the audio to mix between the two.
Yeah.
The things you learn along the way that make more sense.
These were just things that you started learning just on your own.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
In total, they had about 30 hours worth of footage that they had to cut down.
Yep.
To, obviously, because one of the distributors want exactly 86 minutes. No more, no less. The entire movie is made up of 1,600 edits in total, which is...
I wrote that too?
Yeah, which is a bit of a weird thing to add in there, but it is kind of cool just to know, a statistical number to that.
I like learning those.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like looking at notes for films that we talk about here. Also, the final note I have here that wasn't mentioned, but I think this is just something really nice to put, is that very low budget, all the money came basically out of pocket and from his parents.
Yep.
Which, for people like us, for people I think who are just coming into trying to make films, you don't need a whole lot of money to make things. You just need to be smart about it and maybe not put a time constraint. They shot for 38 days. That's a proper film schedule, but there's nothing wrong with taking 6 months to do a short film.
Yeah.
when it's convenient to shoot it.
If it's just you and your friends making a short film, take as much time as you want. But if you're like, oh, we've been hired to do something,
that's a different story.
A completely different story. If you got friends, you're like, yeah, let's make a movie and whatnot. Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Or you do what we do, where we just shoot something in a weekend.
Yeah,
and we're like, that was a bad idea.
My final note for the thing is, I have seen his later film from 2004, Ghost Lake.
Oh,
I didn't know that because I remember distinctly watching that movie on DVD when I was younger. It was 18 years ago now, so I would have been 12.
Oh, that's the other thing I didn't write down, but it's unfortunate that a lot of the cast in this haven't done any other movies beyond Dream's Door. Yeah. Obviously, Jay's gone on to do a few other films since then.
No, they're not movies that you would...
No.
That would be in theaters.
No.
Per se. He's making movies. They're mainly some of those stuff that you would find in at Walmart. There'd be 8 horror movies for $5.
Yeah, probably something in that, or what you find on a streaming service.
Yeah, they're Redbox movies.
Yes.
So they're again, nothing to say that
there's nothing bad about that, of course. He's doing what he probably enjoys doing.
Yeah.
But it's just as a note. It's not like you're gonna see
you don't
it in
see
a
his
certain
movies
place.
in theaters, but they do exist out there on DVD and in horror compilations. And
maybe something we'll have to check out to slowly look through his discography or his filmography.
Yeah, I remember I saw Ghost Lake years ago. I liked it when I was younger. Again, I think
12. That's all the more reason to watch it then.
Yeah,
to see if you still like it.
Let's see. Is it on Amazon?
I imagine it must be somewhere. It can't be that hard to find.
Ghost Lake.
It's on Shudder. Everything's on Shudder that's horror related. Sometimes things that aren't horror are on Shudder.
35. That's expensive. I don't know.
So you're telling this to the person who spent about $60 for a really bad movie?
Was that
Ben and Arthur?
Oh my god! I forgot about Ben and Arthur.
That movie cost a pretty penny, but it was worth it.
Where did you get that from?
From you. I ordered it from Cinema One.
Oh my god.
And you're you are aware this is going to be after tax, probably closer to 60 or the high 50s. I'm like,
that's right,
it's well worth
it was a U.S. import. And thank you for reminding me about Ben and Arthur, because I need to log that on my Letterboxd.
At some point, we will have to watch it for the podcast, because I definitely want to talk about that. Back on topic, because I could talk about Ben and Arthur for days.
We should probably rewatch that movie. I erased it from my memory. I completely forgot.
Never forget.
Did Chris and Laura watch that with us, or was it?
Yeah, I've shown it to all. Anytime I get a chance, I show that movie to everyone.
Oh my god!
For better or worse.
Probably for the latter.
This is why I'm still single.
You still have it though, right?
Yeah, it is likely in that top pile over there where it's easy for me to grab it at any moment.
Oh, it's convenient. So you're like,
I can be like,
hi, new friend, welcome. I have a movie to show you, by the way. What is it? It's called Ben and Arthur.
I'm just gonna grab a random. Oh, look what I found!
Oopsie, I found this one. Oh my god. I completely forgot about Ben and Arthur.
Shame on you.
How could I do such a thing? I want to read the Letterboxd reviews, because sometimes they're pretty snarky. And
so yeah, that is our discussion on Beyond Dream's Door. It is, I think, unanimously we're saying definitely give it a watch.
100%.
We watched it on Shudder.
Mm-hmm.
It is obviously out there on the Blu-rays.
Oh, yeah. It's only available in a 3-pack from Vinegar Syndrome. So if you're in Canada, it's probably going to be about $80 for the 3 of them. Oh,
no. 3 movies for $80. What a steal.
Yeah.
Especially from Vinegar Syndrome, of all people. They're a little pricier for their releases, too.
Yeah, most of their releases are about $29, $30 some odd dollars, which isn't too bad, but I usually wait for a sale, and I can get a few of them for $22 to $24, which is a lot better.
So yeah, definitely give it a watch. And I think that's about everything we have to chat about.
I don't think we have anything else to say about the 2 movies. I think we're pretty concise.
Yeah. I guess just all the standard outro stuff. Don't forget to share the podcast, talk about movies and shit like that in our comment section. Does anyone use that?
I have no idea. How many do you have up now?
By the time this one comes out, this will be maybe the 5th or 6th episode, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on the podcast proper streaming listening areas, definitely check it out on our YouTube channel, because those will be uploaded there much faster and earlier than anywhere else. It's because I am lazy. I might not even find its way onto any podcast services.
The doctor says I have the lazy.
Till next time.
Toodaloo.